Hey, starting a couple minutes early, but I'm already set up, so why not? So I don't have anything too specific that I really want to talk about tonight, so I may wind up kind of talking about one of the topics I sort of touched on last night, and if you hear me shifting around, I'm trying to find a book on my shelf, and I'm knocking everything over in the process, so apologies for that. In any case, I might wind up talking, like I said, about last night how we talked about religion and how we kind of, by we I mean sort of the grander culture overall, sees religion as kind of interiorized sort of thing, and in that context, I mentioned a religious studies scholar by the name of William Cavanaugh. And I'm thinking I may have that one as one of my my reading group books, a book by him, or parts of a book by him, as one of my reading group books. Probably beginning with the book of his that, quite frankly, I prefer, but not for the reasons having to do with the title, really, but for a lot of the sort of setup work that he does, which is called The Myth of Religious Violence. Highly recommend it. I have a review of it somewhere. I don't know if it's still public or if it's still published. I did have it published somewhere, but I don't know if it's still around. Either way, that's probably going to be one of the articles I put up on my blog, which is, as of now, up and running, as you may have seen. So in any case, I'm going to probably... there's a good chance I'll talk about that some. At least his idea of religion, and we might do... I might include that as sort of the first... if not the first, one of the first pieces of the reading group. So that one, I still am working on. I still need to record and have uploaded and edited and uploaded and everything. The one for SCOTUS. So that's still on the horizon. Obviously, I've been a little delayed in doing so. So we'll see. We'll see when I get around to actually getting these reading group videos out. Hopefully soon. I'm shooting to have at least the first one of whichever I'm doing first up this weekend, and I might actually do Cavanaugh's book first, if that's something more people would be interested in. Especially because it's simpler, it's easier to record, and it would, if I can find an ebook version to read off of for the recording. I'm not sure about that. I have a hard copy, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that is what's coming up on the horizon. That is some of the plan of things to expect from the channel. Like I said, also I mentioned this before. I have a couple of other videos recorded in the editing room, so to speak, that are going to be coming out eventually. Kylie asked, can you go over who SCOTUS is again? Yeah, if you actually take a look at my most recent non-stream video, I'm gonna get us into the game while we load in. I'll talk about this. The video on the stomach principle. SCOTUS was the late medieval philosopher who formulated what certain people, and by certain people I mean my academic advisor and me, refer to as the stomach principle. He was a late scholastic, so he was writing sort of in response to Thomas Aquinas, and a lot of his views, a lot of his ideas are in reaction to and either recontextualizing or even in some cases just explicitly writing against Thomas Aquinas' views. Now, there is certainly more agreement than disagreement there, but he's known for a few really stark differences which are kind of deep in theology. They're rather, you have to have a pretty thorough understanding of what both of them are talking about to really understand what the differences are and why they're significant. But I'll go over a few important ones. One that I'm most interested in from my own research purposes is that Aquinas, broadly speaking, was an intellectualist with respect to action theory or free will. Aquinas took the intellect to be the rational part of the person, the part of the person that makes rational determinations, and ultimately the part that makes decisions. That's in the intellect. The will is just the appetite, or he calls it the intellectual appetite, or the appetitive arm of the intellect. It is, the will is our recognition that things are good, and so worth pursuing. So the intellect does the recognizing, and then the will is just sort of there. It's, to use Scotus's term, a natural power. For Aquinas, it is you'd call it a natural power, at least. Scotus, by contrast, is a voluntarist. What this means is that he would say that the will is the distinctive and rational part of the human of the human being, the part that is free, the part that makes rational decisions, all that stuff. So we are determined not by our intellect, not by how we think about stuff, but what we choose, given what we have thought. Right? The intellect, Scotus thinks, is absolutely determined. Right? If we are presented with an argument, we're going to either accept it or reject it. There's no, I want some stew. I want to wander off here. So I'll come back. Yeah, so if we're presented with something, there we go. Pour stew. Stew bowl. There we go. So if we're presented with stew, in this case, Arthur sees his stew. The intellect, according to Aquinas, will determine that this stew looks good, and it's worth eating, and I should eat it very, very quickly, despite it being hot. And that was an intellectual misjudgment. He misjudged how hot it was, and so burns his tongue.
Good morning.
For Scotus, he might say that the will, or the intellect, understands that the stew is hot and understands that the stew is delicious. Or in this case, maybe, now we're picking up the coffee. Right? The intellect understands that the coffee is hot, but the coffee is also delicious. And so the will chooses between drinking the coffee nice and slowly, or by contrast, accepting the pain that comes with Pearson nudging into my shoulder, or just chugging it down. Okay. So basically, the difference is which part of our mental apparatus, which part of our soul, if you want to put it that way, is ultimately responsible for our decision making. So we were in the middle of doing something for John Marston, but hey, we can do that. I don't want to do anything to do with Micah for now, but I do want to. Well, let's finish up what we were doing with John first, because we were stealing a train. So that is the intellectualism versus voluntarism is one of the biggest differences between Aquinas and Scotus. Scotus was a voluntarist, and that was his kind of calling card. That was his main thing. There was also another big difference explicitly in theology, which is the difference between analogical and univocal predication, which I'll talk about after we have a chat with John.
John? Get on. Good. And you? Got everything we need. Good. I think we need another man. Charles? I'll go get him. Meet us at the wagon when you can. Sure. See, Arthur? Ain't that dumb. Next time, let the wolves eat all your brains. Then you'll be a genius. Live on a moderate diet. Don't drink, or I'll deny it. All
right, so Oh. Abigail. Oh, here we go. Okay. Before I do the thing with John, I gotta talk to his wife. So the next thing, while I'm just wandering around camp and we're being serenaded by the Reverend, the theological difference that SCOTUS brings is is called, like I said, univocal rather than analogical predication. I've talked about this in class before. Kylie, you might remember. I've mentioned the issue of analogical predication. Essentially, that things that we attributes that we predicate of God, right? Descriptions we use for God, don't mean exactly the same thing as when we say them about human beings or creatures in general. No. Yeah, let's pay $90. Yeah. Cool. So, on this note, Aquinas thought that when we say, for example, God is good, we mean something fundamentally different, but similar to what we mean when we say that a human being is good. Right? It's analogous. The two terms are analogous, but not the same. They don't mean exactly the same thing. They mean something similar.
It was a heap of trouble, but I got Micah out of jail.
Oh, thank you, Arthur. So where is he?
Still out round that way. Looking for a peace offering, he said.
Scotus, by contrast, thinks that Aquinas' idea of analogous or analogical predication.
Around Blackwater when you got Sean.
Not good.
Scotus thought that Aquinas' version is analogical predication. He thought that was basically just equivocation. That you're not actually saying the same thing about God if you don't mean exactly the same thing. So if we say that I mean something different when I say, Arthur's a good man versus God is good, right? These are very fundamentally different things that I mean. And in the one case, when I say Arthur's a good man, I'm talking about good in a particular sense, right? I'm talking about good with respect to what makes a human being a human being. He's not at the moment, but maybe he will be eventually. But when I talk about God is good, when I say good, I mean something very, very different. I mean God is goodness itself. And this is very fundamentally different because God isn't a good example of any particular kind of thing. Right, so that's a very different sort of thing.
I know, you already told me that.
Ideas above her station. Above anyone's station, that one.
Speaking of ideas above our station, we're kind of getting high-minded theology here. And quite frankly, a bit above even my station here. This is the part of Scotus that first of all, as far as I understand it, I don't agree with it. I don't think that, I do think that we should err towards analogical predication, like Aquinas suggests, rather than univocal predication, because it gives you all sorts of problems for doctrines like divine simplicity, that God is perfectly simple, God isn't composed of parts, that sort of thing. It also gives you problems with respect to emanation, right? Things participating in the divine essence in varying degrees. That's how God creates. Right? It gives you problems with all sorts of other doctrines. I'm not a fan of Scotus on that count. I am a big fan of Scotus on the note of voluntarism. I really think that he is spot on with respect to his action theory and his moral psychology for human beings. So those are two of, I think, the biggest and most important differences. So those are just some other minor little points. I do think that I do want to go into reading Scotus, because I'm going to be reading the section that where he outlines something like the stomach principle. That is going to be the part that we're going to read and discuss. So that would be the next thing that we'd be doing for Scotus. For Cavanaugh, it would be on the how we understand religion and how that sort of fails to describe anything in particular. I'll kind of go into what he means by that, or what I mean by characterizing him that way. But I want to get this started. Probably let most of this quest through, because this is a really talky quest, if I remember, if I'm thinking of the right one. Also, this one involves Officer Asshole.
What is it?
In the thumbnail.
Can I ask you a favor?
Probably not.
Very funny. Would you do something with Jack? He seems kind of down. All this upheaval can't have been easy on the poor kid.
Why? Because I'm your preferred nursemaid?
Because he likes you, and, well, you know his father's useless.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So let's find Jack. Yeah, I didn't, I'd like to say I put a lot of effort into that thumbnail, but I didn't really. I had an idea, and I just kind of went with it, as I do with a lot of my thumbnails. Put the Officer Asshole on a t-shirt. I think that putting Officer Asshole on a t-shirt might give the wrong impression in a lot of cases. So maybe not the best thing to put on there.
What you up to?
Playing,
Anything fun?
I guess.
You want to come fishing with me?
Fishing?
Sure. It's about time that you started to earn your keep.
Okay,
Good. Let's go get your pole then. Now, you do have a fishing pole, don't you?
I sure do. Uncle Jose made me one.
Good. Well, let's go get it then. Go catch us some fish.
Yeah.
Ain't he just the cutest little criminal in training?
Lift you on when you're ready. All right. Hold on tight.
So, where are we going?
Just down to the river near here. You shouldn't go too far from camp.
Oh, okay.
You feeling better? I know you was a little sick.
Oh, I'm fine.
You're a brave kid.
So, just like you.
Well, I don't know about brave. I ain't much of a kid no more. Well, your mama might disagree. Her and a few other women, I guess.
What do you mean?
I'm just talking silly. It's been a tough few weeks up in that snow.
I like the snow.
Yes, but not like that.
When are we going back to the other camp?
The one near Blackwater?
Yeah.
Well, we're not. This is our spot. For now, anyway. Why?
I forgot a storybook there. We left so quick.
Well, I'm sure someone can get you another storybook.
Really? When?
Well, we'll see. Got fish to catch first.
So Kylie asks, how are the little ones doing? I assume you're talking about mine, and they're doing really well.
All right.
Let's go. Yeah, they're doing great. Michael doesn't know how to sleep yet, really, or at least sleep by himself. So we haven't been doing a lot of sleeping since he was born on Monday. So, you know how things go. It's not too bad though. He is overall he is
Stand, Uncle Arthur.
he is very good. He's a good kid. He is calm and very collected and just chill in general, which is a stark contrast with how Saoirse was. She was and is, to put it nicely, a spaz. She takes very much after me when I was a kid. Not the gun. There we go. Saoirse takes way after me when I was a kid. There we go.
You can't fish without a pole.
I know that,
First,
Jack.
we need some bait.
How about all I have is cheese? Cheese
I'm
wins.
gonna use some cheese.
Cheese?
Smellier the better. Now, cast your line. Swing the rod back over your shoulder and bring it forward in a smooth motion. Use your wrist, not your elbow.
And there we go.
Like that?
That's it. Good. All we do now, Jack, is wait for a fish to take the bait.
How do I know when I've got a bite?
Well, if you feel the tip of your fishing rod just twitching, don't yank it yet. That just means one's nibbling. If you feel a hard tug, that's a fish going for the bait, so yank hard to hook it.
Something's tugging at your rod, Uncle Arthur.
Got one, Jack.
Go ahead, do this. Oh, space.
You see him fighting there, Jack?
Oh,
That's when
little
you
one.
gotta be careful. You'll break the line. Best to wear him out first before you try to reel him in. Look, Jack, it's a chain picker. It's almost as small as you.
Yeah, cheese actually does work.
Throw these smaller ones back.
It's because of the oil and
Give 'em
stuff.
a chance to grow up a bit.
Yeah.
Can I take a break from fishing? I want to make something.
Okay.
Yeah, so cheese does actually work as bait. One of the ones I was surprised by is another of the options is bread. I had to be taught that. I had no idea that you could use bread for bait to fish. But Mrs. McCoy showed me that at one point and embarrassed me to no end by the number of fish she caught with bread on a hook. I was shocked. Absolutely shocked. I had no idea that was possible. Oh, jeez. This is much harder when you can't actually feel the pole. I will say that. Lots of games try very, very hard to make it feel like actual fishing, with like haptic feedback and all that kind of stuff.
Fish on the line.
And very seldom does it actually feel anything like fishing.
Nice and steady. This one's a bluegill. Not bad.
All right, let's throw it back because it gives us honor to throw them back, which is weird, but okay. We're being nice to the fish.
Fishing sure is boring, Uncle Arthur.
I know. Boring as hell. But then, something happens. You can get food for days.
Really?
If you're lucky. But until then, you just sit and wait. Try not to worry. It's good for you,
It's good for you?
I guess.
I also have to say, when I was a kid, I was pretty bored by fishing because of the whole waiting thing. Wasn't a big fan of that. I always preferred fishing with a sabiki. If you've ever actually seen a sabiki, if you're not familiar with it, it's usually for like refishing. Ooh, that I'll keep. That'd be good. But yeah, that a sabiki is like 5 or 6 lines on one, or sorry, hooks on one line, so you can pull up like a bunch of fish all at once, which was just endlessly entertaining when I was Jack's age.
And in such complex circumstances. Arthur, isn't it? Arthur Morgan?
Who are you?
Yes, Arthur Morgan, Vanderlyn's most trusted associate. You've read the files. Typical case. Orphaned street kid seduced by that maniac's silver tongue and matures into a degenerate murderer. Agent Milton, Agent Ross, Pinkerton Detective Agency, seconded to the United States government. Nice to finally meet. We know a lot about you.
Do you?
You're a wanted man, Mr. Morgan. There's $5,000 for your head alone.
$5,000? For me? Can I turn myself in?
We want Vanderlyn.
Old Dutch. I haven't seen him for months.
That's so. Because I heard guy fitting his description robbed a train belonging to Leviticus Cornwall up near Granite Pass.
Oh, ain't that a little old-fashioned nowadays?
Apparently not. Listen. This is my offer, Mr. Morgan. Bring in Vanderlyn, and you have my word you won't swing.
Oh, I ain't gonna swing anyways, Agent,
Milton.
You see, I haven't done anything wrong, aside from not play the games to your rules.
Spare me the philosophy lesson. I've already heard it from Mac Callender.
Mac Callender?
He was pretty shot up by the time I got to him. So really, it was more of a mercy killing. Slow, but merciful.
You enjoy being a rich man's toy, dear.
I enjoy society, flaws and all. You people venerate savagery, and you will die. Savagely, all of you.
Oh, we're all gonna die, Agent.
Some of us sooner than others. Good day, Mr. Morgan.
Goodbye.
Enjoy your fishing, kid, while you still can.
Who are they?
No one to worry about, no one at all. Come on, let's pick up your things and get home.
It's getting late, Jack. Your mother'll be worried. Let's head back.
Kylie says Cop earned his nickname and his face looks like Deadpool's face. Yeah, he does kind of look a bit like a burn victim. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's just kind of a poor work in the modeling, but yeah, he looks a little messed up in the face. Yeah, so this brings us to some interesting things to discuss. First of all,
Why did you lie about where Uncle Dutch is?
Yeah,
Because those are disagreeable men, and I don't want them to hurt him.
What did they mean about Mac? Is he in jail?
No, I don't think so. I hope he's just fine where he is. Like I said, don't worry about them. The world is full of disagreeable men. That's why you got all of us to protect you from folk like them. Now, how about that necklace you made? You still got it, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Good. Did you like fishing?
It was okay, I think. It's a lot of waiting around.
It is.
yeah. So there's a lot to talk about there because I think that little conversation and really all the conversations you have with the Pinkertons really encapsulates some of the major themes of the game that I've been talking about for a while. This kind of this center versus periphery type thing. That on the one hand you have this civilized center, what Milton calls civilization, and then you also have people living on the periphery, people living savagely, if you want to take his description of it, and that gives rise to all sorts of conflict, and I mean conflict not just in terms of crime. There's cultural conflicts to it as well.
I made you this necklace.
Ain't that pretty? Ain't I the luckiest? Did you thank Uncle Arthur?
No need. We had a good time.
What's wrong?
Nothing. Just met some folk. I better go speak with Dutch.
Okay.
Hey, you did real fine, kid.
Thanks.
We got a problem.
What?
I just met some guys out near the river. A fella named, Milton, and, I don't remember the other fella's name. Ross. Milton and Ross. And they are employees of the Pinkerton Detective Agency. And they know about the train, and they know we're here.
Well, you followed back here.
No, they know we're near here. And they want you, Dutch. They offered me my freedom in exchange, they did.
Why didn't you take it?
Very funny. Well, what do we do now?
I say we do nothing. Just yet. They're just trying to scare us into doing something stupid. We have turned a corner. We survived them mountains. We just need to stay calm.
Well, all right. So, like I said, there is a lot to this sort of conflict between civilization, the expanding civilization, represented by not just the Pinkertons, but the civilized folk that we see throughout the game, and the people who live, let's say, on the periphery, the edge of society, like Arthur and the gang. Outlaws, people who don't. It's not that they. I wouldn't say they. It's not specifically that they don't abide by society's rules. They don't, obviously, and it's not even that they commit crime. They do, obviously, but the more fundamental part, and I really think the thing to make note of, is the like I said, the cultural difference. And this is a big deal in American culture. The difference between urban and rural. What's it?
You busy, Arthur?
Robbery.
We've all done that, Reverend.
I'm bitterly ashamed. Really, I am.
All right, Reverend. Let's go rob a homestead.
I heard about a house. Could be interesting.
What kind of a house?
I don't know. A couple fellas I heard in town, they said it was really freakish. A family local boogeymen, I guess. But they're crooked in every way.
So?
Well, so these boys thought they were sitting on a lot of cash. They're highway robbers, kidnappers, apparently. They're well hidden in the woods.
Well, sounds pretty dubious.
Of course, yeah, it's dubious, but there ain't much risk of getting caught.
Okay, then. Let's go take a look.
Exactly. Just take a look.
Well, okay then.
It's up north, on the other side of the river from Valentine. Best way there is to Cumberland Falls, though. You know it?
Sure, more or less.
Trying to remember which quest this is, and I think I know what it's talking about, but we'll see. Anyway, so like I said, clearly Arthur and the gang are prone to crime. Get rid of my waypoint. Here we go. And I mean crime, like to kind of go back a little bit to our conversation last week, I mean crime in the full, robust sense of things which are malum in se, right, wrong intrinsically of themselves, and which do directly harm other people and other people's property, etc. Right? Not just a matter of breaking the law. If it were merely a matter of breaking the law, that might be a different story. But I think it is that different story, the merely breaking the law, the merely sort of bucking the trends of society, of the center, of not playing along with the center, that is the more interesting aspect of the conflict.
Tranquilo. Okay, we're pretty close now. Let's stop and go on foot from here.
Hold on, let me make sure I have
Just up the hill.
reasonable weapons. Repeater, Springfield rifle. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that'll work.
This way. Follow me.
I think this is the one. It's the
There's a spot up ahead where we should be able to get a good look at the place. I
The
wanna
strange,
make sure we don't
isolated
run into any
hillfolk.
surprises.
Sure.
Apparently, this family's been isolated for so long, they started talking in their own weird dialect.
yeah, like I said.
They really don't like outsiders, especially on their turf.
Look, you just keep selling me on this job, don't you?
place, right? You got your binoculars?
Well, there's a pretty big barn in the back. It's not a bad place to start looking. There must be a lot of people living here. A large house.
Stash could be in any one of them buildings, and who knows how many people are in there.
I ain't sure about this. Boy, I think we need to draw them out somehow. I got an idea. Follow me. All these trees, I can't get a proper look at the place.
Well, hopefully it'll make it harder for them to spot us, too.
Coast seems clear so far.
Yeah, so far.
Just checking.
Hey, keep it down. I hear voices. Come on, let's hide behind this shed. See if we can hear what they're saying.
Maybe use hunter pig this time, one pound. Creepers fit. No score notions in the dip clinic's head.
Just stay quiet.
Where you been now, Newt? Don't be boiling now, Pappy. I's gone but 10 minutes I was.
You can hollygag all the now day long, 'cause Edie takes patrol now, don't you?
What? Yo, Edie, get all the jam.
You shut your gulper, or I'll flagger your felt, I will. Your niece will pull it up, boy. Up. Go guard the shed.
Go!
You understand what they're saying?
Not much of it. What we doing, Javier?
Okay, you take cover by the rock over there. I'll create a little distraction, and then you jump them, okay?
What kind of distraction?
Be quiet.
Okay. So let's see what Javier's up to.
Oh, swanking heck!
Swankin' heck, I like that one.
What the hickory happened here?
And here we go. We got a bunch of murder and kidnapping hill folk who talk funny. And down we go. Is that all of them? Nope, there's not. There's more.
see any more of them. All right, quick. Let's look for the stash.
They weren't shy about defending that barn. Let's check in there first.
Let's check in there last. Because you know how video games work. Couple of interesting notes. You do find out if you sort of scout this place out, if you're looking through it before you attack, if you're just kind of looking around watching the place, you do find out that, or at least it's pretty heavily implied, that these folks are kidnapping people and keeping them, like keeping people up out in the woods somewhere, that kind of thing. All serial killery, which really fits the aesthetic of this place. I would frankly be surprised if these people were not crazy serial killer types. They certainly seem the sort. Yeah, calm down. That's just the cigarette cards thing. If you haven't seen it, that is a collectible that if you get all of a set, there's some kind of a reward for it from some NPC somewhere, but anyway. Money. Money's good. $15, that's not bad.
Arthur, we need to find the money. Get the hell out of here.
But there's canned vegetables out here. So, while I'm wandering around here looking through the place, we want to go in here. See what this guy's got. So, let's get this done, and then we'll stick around, and we'll talk some more about this sort of center versus periphery theme that I've been trying to learn about.
Well, look what we have here.
I told you it was worth the trouble, didn't I?
Yeah, you take this. Let's split up. I'll meet you back at camp.
Sounds good.
The upper respiratory bits are not a good sign. Let's see what she's got here. Anyway, so one way to look at it is the sort of symbolic way of looking at it is the difference between oh, neat. That works. Is the like I've been saying, center versus periphery, right? Center versus margin. And if you think of oh wait, there's vegetables here. If you think of a sort of a prototypical sort of medieval city or an ancient city, where you have the walled city with the keep at the center. You have a kind of the very center of civilization that is the both the symbolic and literal center of civilization, where everything kind of revolves around the most highly defended part of society, but then also the most centrally important politically and socially speaking. This would be something like, the palace of the king, or the keep of a lord, whatever. And then you move out into the actual city, which is usually enclosed by a wall that separates for the us from the them, the center from the outside, the inside from the outside. This difference extends further, though, because you have peripheral characters. You have the periphery of society, which is the parts of society which are... Where am I? What are those premium cigarettes? I can actually just... There we go. Discard all, because I'm about to pick up more. There. Blackwater. Because you have parts of the civilization that are outside the city walls. You have farming towns. You have shanty towns. You have people who live out there outside of the middle of society, but who are still parts of society. They're just sort of at the edge of society. Do I need to polish anything? Why not? I'm about to get more gun oil. Beyond that, you have wilderness. You have the outside, well and truly outside of society. You have the part of the world which is not just outside of society, but is typically a threat to society, or at least is seen as a threat to society, and may actually be, right? That's where danger comes from. And then that danger can take the form of wilderness, of strange things beyond the outside of society, or it can take the form of another society. But that other society has to sort of pass through this margin in order for societies to clash. They have to pass through the wilderness to get to each other. This is, military campaigning, if you want to take it literally. If you want to take it more figuratively, this is the kind of thing where you're talking about any kind of interpersonal interaction has to go through some indeterminate space. If you're going to interact with another person, it's going to wind up being uncertain. There's going to be uncertainties. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, yeah. Neat. There's going to be uncertainties when you interact with other people. Because other people are part of they're outside of us. They're not us. And because of that difference, there is a threat, a danger, or at least a mystery to it. So, if we look at society rather than as a particular, smaller society, and look to the center and the margin, and if you extend that out to society in general, and then the margin of society in general, like the social margin, the parts of society which are peripheral, that are weird, that are out there, right? You have all of these terms for it. Then what we have is oh no, my gun. Okay, well, I do need that. Definitely need to maintain it, though. Oh man, that is in bad shape. Much better. Cool. So let's hang on to that. Nice gun. Anyway. So this is a core symbolic conflict. Right? There is always going to be a sort of conflict between the center and the periphery. Right? There's going to be the center of society, which are the normal people, if you want, right? People who are not people who follow the rules, people who do what society expects, all of that. What? Oh, okay. But then you also have the opposite. You have the opposing force, which is the marginal. And this is represented in the distinction between the law and the outlaw, at least in this context. And that distinction is not just a distinction of criminals, people who harm other people, criminals in the proper sense, but it's also people who just don't fit in with society. And there are varying degrees of that. You can have outlaws like Dutch's gang. But then at the same time, you can also have people who are even further out, beyond even the margins of society, like these folks. These particularly strange hill folk, right? Part of the difference there, and part of what sets them apart is the difference between opposition to civilized society, like these people. These people are well, I mean, let's suppose at least that these people are opposed to civilized society, whereas the gang, the Vanderlyn gang, isn't opposed to civilized society, but wants to be on the outside of it, just wants to sit outside of it. The trouble is that society is constantly expanding. Right? Society is the center always wants to expand out into the periphery. And the periphery doesn't want to be encroached upon. And it doesn't want to be civilized. That's why it's marginal. That's why it's not already part of society in the same sense. Right. I'm gonna check the horses around here. If there's any of these horses you think I should take with me as my new horse, let me know. What are you? Ooh, standard breed. Oh, okay, standard bred. Not bad. Not bad. I like it. How about you? Paint. Yeah. You know what?
Come on.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna go take this horse and my horse. I think I have Arthur 2. Take both of these back to Valentine and actually claim this horse, I think. This is very far from Valentine. But that's fine. Uh-oh. I think I hear Michael being upset in the background. If anything is needed, I'm sure Mrs. McCoy can either just come in and steal me. I may have to disappear in that case. Or pop up in the chat. That is also a thing. In any case. Oh no, don't do that. Yeah, okay.
Good girl.
Alright. Any candidates to name the new horse? Nice chocolate coat. It's a girl. What's going on over here? Interesting. It's just someone's camp. What's in their basket? Oh, horse reviver. Wait, what?
Come on.
Let's leave. Oops.
Yep.
My bad. Should have known better than to just wander into someone's camp and take something from a basket, but oh well, I didn't. Didn't think of that. Didn't think that one through. Puddin's nice. I like Puddin. Puddin's a pretty good name for a horse. She looks like a puddin. Yay, I didn't get a bounty. Alright, so part of this distinction that I really want to draw, this difference between the center and the margin. I draw a lot of my understanding of this from Jonathan Pajot, who I've mentioned before. He is a symbologist, an icon carver. So he works physically works with symbolism and kind of crafting these messages into actual, carved symbols that mean something. So I think we can point to this difference between the civilizing force and the uncivilized, if you want to call it uncivilized. The civilization will certainly call it uncivilized, right? As we saw. I'm gonna wait for Arthur 2 to catch up. Little Debbie's not bad. Hostess, yeah. I think Little Debbie a little more so.
Yeah. Hey there, mister.
Arthur's so friendly when he's not shooting folks. Yeah, so one kind of parallel to this, one parallel to the issue of kind of margin and center and margin, this dichotomy between center and margin. One parallel to this, and one that fits spectacularly well into the sort of American cultural context that you see represented by this game. Arthur's hungry. Arthur eat. Oh, I didn't restore my stamina. Alright, fine. Maybe I'll go sleep. No, will. So one parallel to this is the distinction between urban and rural. Right? And I think this is, especially recently, there's been a kind of resurgence in the analysis of the meaning of the distinction between urban and rural, and why that is significant from a cultural, social, political perspective. I think the distinction is discounted pretty often. A lot of times we don't really think of political and cultural disagreements as political and cultural, whereas I think it would be probably better in most cases to here, let's name. How do I do that? I have to, really? Yeah, I have to saddle it up to, okay, fine. So let's go with Little Debbie. I like Little Debbie. Not Debit. Debbie. There we go. Little Debbie. Let's switch back to Arthur 2 until we get that bonding level all the way up. Actually get him to like me. Alright. Brushy. Brushy? Can't brushy. But the urban-rural distinction, the urban-rural divide, is, I think, is not always given its appropriate seriousness in terms of the role that it plays in our political and cultural disagreements. I've noticed more and more, having lived, I grew up in suburbia, I moved into the big city for college, and I've since moved out into the middle of absolute nowhere.
That queasy feeling you've been having?
Oh, hi.
I think that's because there's so many O'Driscolls about.
Look at you. Another coward trying to play it tough.
You looking to prove something here? Get out of here now!
Come on! Let's go!
You're done here!
Almost, fellas.
Got him. Bye. Bye, O'Driscoll. I'm gonna leave before looting him, though, because if I loot him, somebody's gonna report me or something. Anyway. So yeah, I think we often discount this. Because again, like I said, I have, having sort of lived on both sides of this divide, you see this as a really significant distinction, culturally speaking. Now, it doesn't work perfectly in terms of the symbolism of center and margin. The city is not entirely center, and the country is not entirely margin, because they are their own centers in terms of society. But they do have the same kind of conflict that you would expect between the center and the margin. It's just that you have to look at it from the perspective of the margin versus from the perspective of the center. I mentioned Jonathan Pajot. One of his best videos on this subject is, oddly enough, about Shrek. Which seems weird. There. About Shrek, the movie Shrek. And he talks about Shrek being the inversion of the fairy tale. The fairy tale is typically about the center, someone for an embodiment of the center, a hero, a prince, whatever, going out to confront the margin, going out to confront the dangers from outside. Right? Now, what makes Shrek weird is that the protagonist is an embodiment of the margin. Ooh. 3 stars. Damn it. Get it? I mean, I got it. I don't know if I got the perfect help. I shot it too many times. Damn. Oh well.
Easy,
the risk of using Deadeye.
Gotta be done.
Oh well. Pelts still sell. And I can still cook the meat.
Come on, boy.
Alright. Anyway, moving on. So Shrek, we see, is the prototypical figure of the margin, who then confronts the center. The aberrant center, the center gone wrong, which is Duloc. Right, I'll direct you to his video on it if you want the full analysis of it. He compares it to ancient Greek poetry in a really neat way. It works really well. It's a brilliant analysis. That aside, though, if we look at this story, or even just westerns in general, usually what we have is one of two stories. We either have the hero is either the sheriff or the outlaw. If the hero is the sheriff, then what's happening is they represent a sort of outpost of the center within the margin. Right? They represent a. I mean, if we want to take it from, the outlaw's perspective, it's something more like. Damn. Okay, that was a bad shot. Oh well. Watching for rabbits.
Yeah.
But if it's the sheriff, from the outlaw's perspective, the sheriff, the civilizing influence of a new city or a new town, represents the expansion of the center out into the margin, a kind of colonization of the margin by the center, or an outpost, if you will, an outpost within the margin by the center, like I already said. Right. The other story is the story of the outlaw, centering around the outlaw, like this one. And in this case, it is just the opposite. It is, you're looking at things from the perspective of the margin, of the outsider, of the uncivilized, and watching as civilization starts to creep and creep and creep, and take over the way that you're used to living. talking about? I heard a gunshot.
Easy there.
Where'd I hear? Who's shooting?
Yeah.
Anyway. Part of that is part of what's going on. What winds up going on there is is why outlaws become outlaws, both why they are in conflict with the law, and then also why they turn to crime, is because they do not have a place in the society that is encroaching on them. The gang may well have been something like ranchers. Had society not encroached and pushed them into something like
Your
crime.
job's starting the fight.
At least that's what they might like to think.
Scrap, Arthur. I'm just not good at homework.
I can see.
Besides, what do you care, Englishman? You've got no time for me. I tried to find you work, but then you're off cutting jobs with other folks, and your boy Sean doesn't get a look in.
Guess I don't want to get shot, that's all.
Yeah, you're a real fucking funny shit, Arthur Morgan, huh? Real fucking funny.
Calm down.
You better sleep with your eyes open.
Yeah, well, you're gonna sleep with your chest open if you ain't careful, boy.
I love you, Arthur Morgan. I love you. Come on, take a shot. Come on, take your best shot, please, eh?
Grow up.
And let me come on the raid with yous.
Raid?
Don't be playing coy with me, son. It's unbecoming. That bloody train you and him has set up. What you're doing out here, you're going to need guns, you're going to need men.
Oh, that. So Marston told you? It ain't a big show. I need calmness. If I take you, I might as well bring Micah along.
Compare me to that oily turd again. You're a dead man.
Fair enough.
What are you doing here, kid?
I'm coming, John. On the job.
I said you weren't coming.
Yeah, well, Arthur says I am. And it's his party, boy, so come on, let's go. Me and the big cheeses. Love it. Can't wait to slit some bastard's throat.
You sure about this?
No. Are we ready?
Yeah. Train's due through tonight.
All right, then. It's on. Charles?
I'm ready.
Gentlemen, let's go earn some money.
All right.
Hey, all the horses untethered?
Think so.
Good. They should follow on behind us. We'll never get there at this pace.
You find a good spot, Wolfman?
Yeah. Follow the trail southwest. There's a spot that's remote, but should still give them enough time to spot the oil wagon.
They see this blocking the tracks, they'll stop shooting up.
Apparently, picks up a new team of guards at the state line, so shouldn't be too much in the way of guns to deal with.
See, this is what I mean. I disappear for a couple of weeks and you cut me out of all the action.
Just the action that requires a brain.
So as a reminder, we're basically threatening a train, getting them to stop by putting this oil wagon on the tracks in the hopes that they'll either stop or blow themselves up. It's actually a clever plan.
You're gonna buy a breakfast in the morning.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Stay close on this. Wouldn't want you getting scratched by a squirrel or something.
They're left here, towards Rhodes.
So, where was I? That could put you out of commission for the rest of the year.
Why do you have to speak so much? It's incessant.
Plus, I've still got some blood in me veins. You old bastards have forgotten how to live.
I blame you two for rescuing them.
Far too much trouble for what we got out of it.
Yeah, takes a whole army of bounty hunters to bring in Sean McGuire. And look at me now, in the gutter sea. Back in business, boys. You know, my dad always used to say...
Not the dad, please.
Not this again.
Fine, damn you three. Sulky, angry, Scarface. A right barrel of laughs. So, we block the tracks with the wagon, then jump them. That's the plan.
Pretty much. Charles, you deal with the engineer. John, secure the passenger car fast, take charitable donations, and make sure everyone behaves. Little Mr. McGuire.
Here's good. Stop the wagon over the tracks. Remember, these are innocent folks. We handle this right, nobody needs...
That seems to be an unnecessary bit of
Mr.
care
Smith,
for the innocent.
Mr. McGuire,
Surprising.
Get over
You wouldn't get that from Micah.
When she slows, order.
And you?
I want to make sure she slows.
Let's do or die with you. I like it.
Get moving. Here she comes.
This is last week's thumbnail. Or half of it. How about that cinematography? Man.
What's going on here? What's going on?
Nothing good.
Hey! You bastard! All yours, Captain. We'll go on ahead.
Everybody stay calm and nobody will get shot. Go! Everything you got. Money, valuable.
Don't do this.
There you go. Let's make this quick, people. Come on. We ain't leaving till this bag's full.
I don't want to get hurt. I'll do anything.
I ain't got nothing.
Want to have a little chat with Romeo and Juliet here?
What's money, valuable?
Don't do this. Just give it to him, Thomas, please.
Okay, come on. Okay. In the bag, everything you got. Keep it coming. Don't be shy.
People like you make me sick.
These two seem to think we're playing games.
I am adverse to conflict, my
I want to count to 3. 1, 2.
Deal with these two, will you, Mr. M?
Adverse to conflict, my dear.
God damn it. Sick is better than dead, lady. And I'm losing my goddamn patience.
Let's just do what he says so this can be over. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a robbery. Let's make this quick.
No, you go ahead and look for the baggage car.
Tough guy, huh? You sure about that?
Why are you wasting our time?
You show this son of a bitch we ain't playing around here. Everything you got. Money, valuables. We ain't leaving till this bag's full.
You won't get a damn cent from me.
Let me hand you over to my friend then.
Come on. Put it now! Son of a bitch.
Come on, cup it up, people. Don't be shy. Everything you got. Let's go.
Don't do it.
No, how could you?
I can handle this from here. You should check on Sean.
Okay.
Okay.
What is it? You all right?
Fill the baggage car.
For Christ's sake, you ain't even taking a look yet?
There's probably something in here, Arthur.
Fuck's sake! For fuck's sake! I'm sorry. Come on, get up, you little Irish shit. Get up.
Wait a minute. There we go. Better.
This time I'll look and you provide the cover.
I'll try my best, brother, but I'm seeing double here.
That gives you twice the chance of hitting someone.
Very funny.
We'll take that.
I'm gonna have a right out lump on me head.
At least you ain't got a hole in it.
Are those tennis rackets in there? Posh bastards.
Just keep your eyes peeled.
I'm doing me best, all right.
I know, that's what's worrying me. We're looking good in here.
Come on, we should get out of here. All right, we should probably be going now.
Some decent stuff.
Did I miss something at the head of the dam? I did.
These folks are rich, all right.
I'm gonna have to head back up that way, aren't I? Oh, wait. Nope, don't leave Brandy behind. It's over there. Alright. Okay.
Arthur, we've got a problem. Two arseholes on horses.
How many you say?
I just see a pair of them.
All right, in that case, we're fighting. Marston, Smith, get ready.
You men come out the train now, do you hear? We said you men come out now.
There's only 2 of you fools. We got a whole lot less to lose. Why don't the 2 of you ride away? That way neither of you get killed. Goddamn liberties.
Hey, there's a few more of them turning up.
Damn my big mouth. Okay, let's deal with them.
We won't tell you again. There they are! Look out on there! Come down, friend!
I'm trapped here! We got more coming from the trees there! Okay, almost got you! Get rid of it, quick! We can make a run for it! Brady is right here!
Behind us! We got more of the bastards right now!
There he is. Where?
Let's go! Stay with me!
Oop, the other way. Here they come. Do not want to shoot my way through. Let's switch to her revolver. The hell out. Okay. Well, that didn't go too bad.
Whoa! Ho, ho! That was fun, boys. Real fun. We can see what they call you the professionals in the outfit.
Shut up.
At least we made some money. Hey, what did I get? Gotta be $100 here. Very nice.
You weren't even invited.
What now?
We still need a real big take. Enough for us to get out of here.
Was that a setup? Law turned up real fast.
I don't know. I don't think so, but I'm starting to get nervous.
Think they followed us from Blackwater?
Maybe. They found me already near Horseshoe, but I think this lot was just locals.
I hope so. I'm gonna head into Valentine. See if I can get something started there.
Good idea. Either way, we should all go it alone right now. You know the deal. Don't be followed.
Of course not, boss.
Alright. So, there is our... Oh, hey, something here. Let's see what that is. Meanwhile... Now I was saying, before we were so rudely interrupted by thrilling heroics. Not heroics exactly, but you know what I mean. I need... Fine. There. Big ol' meal. Alright, anyway, so... I was saying that this archetypal story, the story of the of the center pressing out on the margin. If you look at it from the perspective of the margin, like we are here, part of what we see there is a kind of,
Easy now.
or at least the excuse would be, let's put it that way, being forced into this kind of a situation because the alternative, because there isn't any alternative, right? You're forced, they are at least, hypothetically or according to them maybe, forced into a life of crime and actually hurting people because the rules of society are encroaching and they aren't allowed to live the way that they would like to live. And again, the way that they would like to live, if we listen to what Dutch has to say, is they'd like to go find a ranch somewhere away from the law. They'd like to go to, Tahiti and farm mangoes?
I get 5 minutes without a fan badgering me?
So,
God. Hello, chum.
Chum?
Do you want an autograph or a photograph?
I'm sorry?
People often get nervous, but there's really no need to. I'm just a normal guy who, happens to be very famous.
Okay. Who are you?
Jeremy Gill.
Who?
The famous fisherman. I've written a lot of books. I'm in the newspaper all the time. Here's one from the New Hanover Gazette from a few years back. And this is a book I wrote. Huh? I wrote it.
Good for you.
You really don't know who I am? Well. Nice to meet you.
when you have to tell someone you're famous, you're not famous.
Sure you don't want a photo?
Not right now.
You know, mothers, they often offer me their daughters.
Just for a photograph?
No, to marry. But I say no. I'm married to the fish.
Huh.
That's weird.
You're famous for fishing?
Very.
And that pays well?
Pretty well. What I mostly do is send fans stuffed fish.
Stuffed fish?
Yeah. Here, let me show you. Come with me.
And you're selling these?
Yes. How many do you want? If you get 3, we could do a photograph. Together, like actual friends.
No, I'm fine. It's sort of ridiculous.
Listen, chum, people love it. And I could sell even more fish if I had them. It helps them to know that out there, there's some man fighting with Neptune on a daily basis and winning.
Okay.
But I can't catch enough of them. And there's really good money in this.
I'll fish a little.
You do? Well, in that case, send them to me. Of course, not if they're too rotten. Do you like that bass? I'd sell this for $50. I'd give you 15.
Send you fish.
Ooh, my card and a map.
Well, maybe I shall.
Only the decent ones. They have to be at least 24 inches in length and 10 pounds in weight. No one wants to imagine Jeremy Gill catching a tiddler. There's no money in tiddlers.
So I hear.
Yeah, Kylie. Weirdest flex probably of this entire game. And there's a lot of weird flexes. I think I'm using that term right. Yeah, this is one of the strangest collectible quests and one of the weirdest ways of making it work. But okay, it's one of those where the idea is kind of corpse. Interesting. The idea is something like that. I need to go here because I need to pay my bounty. That the 1890s, late 19th century, there were a lot of people who were just who were getting into the swindling business, if you want. Very much like our old Jeremy Gill there. Because you see that sort of scam, not scam, but that sort of game, I guess you could say, somebody playing that sort of game in all sorts of places throughout this game. It's all over. But yeah, it is. It's a little bit of everywhere, and it's almost like it's almost a theme of this game where people are, I guess you can say taking advantage of other people for their for this newly connected world, and that actually kind of ties in with what else I've been talking about This idea of the expansion, the gradual expansion of society into the margin, into the Wild West, out into nowhere gradually becoming somewhere, if you want, right? And the people who live out in nowhere, who just want to farm mangoes, if we believe Dutch, that gives them, the gradual encroaching of the center gives the people in the margin a reason to act uncivilized. If we're going to talk in Milton's way, right? Officer Milton. And so we see this kind of conflict, right? And we also, and like I've also said, we see this sort of conflict happen to the modern day from the founding of the U.S. Jefferson talked about this a whole lot, all the way through to this day. This extreme cultural divide between urban and rural. That this really represents the most fundamental divide in the U.S. It's not East versus West so much, not anymore. It's not North versus South so much. Even in the Civil War, it was barely North versus South. There were southern cities that were a lot more like northern cities, and there were backwoods areas in Pennsylvania that were a lot more like the South. But especially today, you have, well, not especially today, but including today, to this day, you have this massive cultural divide between the urban and rural, between city folks and country folks. And then weird suburbanites who kind of flit between them, like more or less myself. And I think this game really exemplifies the kind of division that we see there, and why. Right? Cities want to culturally expand. I wonder if I can do this. I can't. That wasn't going to work. Okay, well, I guess I'll wait. Don't want to rob the train. I want to go past the train. I just robbed a train.
Nice, boy.
Oh, geez, 37 degrees. All right, so my point here, at least for this, right, is that the impulse of the urbanite as representing the center is to expand, right? Is cultural imperialism, if you want. It is in political terms, it's the progressive impulse. It's the spreading our enlightenment into the crazy country yokels, giving them our way of life. Say it however you want to say it, right? By contrast, you have the rural impulse, which is, to put it nicely, to be left alone. But it's, to put it politically, it's the conservative impulse. It's the we don't want change, and we don't want imposition from outside of what we see as us onto ourselves.
Nothing like a fresh start.
And so this is, I think, this forms the... this forms the basis of most political and cultural divides you see in the U.S. Now, it gets kind of muddled a lot of the time. You get shifts that happen, right? The parties change representation in terms of urban versus rural. At least sort of. The ideologies change, but this actually does, I think, explain why ideologies shift. Why it is that you can have a political party that has apparently conflicting ideological viewpoints because they're they're cultural divides, rather than strictly ideological divides. Because if it were a strictly ideological divide, then sure, it would make sense for a political party and their platform to be internally consistent. But you never see a political party with an internally consistent platform. All you ever see is a kind of collection of ideas that fit together somehow, even if they don't make sense together.
Morning.
And it's also why you see the parties kind of switching off views, like viewpoints. For example, you see, for instance, around the Bush years, the early noughties, the Republicans were the war party. But then once Obama was in power and the Democrats broadly were in power, the Democrats became the war party. And now it's a bit of a toss-up. It just sort of depends on who you ask.
So you just
It has more to do with cultural lines than ideological ones.
I got something. You see them?
Sure. Well, you see yourself as a shepherd now?
Maybe. Come on.
Well, where exactly are we going?
Collect something. Help us get some sheep.
You know, that attempt to seem all enigmatic and interesting, that might work for Dutch, but for you, it just makes you look stupid.
Come along. You'll see. That train job was a start, but we need more money. Till we can get back to Blackwater and collect.
I'm here to tell you. We try to collect that money anytime soon, it'll come with a noose.
I was worried you'd say that. Dutch says that we...
Dutch says a lot. That's his gift. Saying things.
Oh, yeah? What do you mean by that?
I was the prize pony once. Now I'm the workhorse. Listen, Dutch is... But, well, you was at that thing in Blackwater. We already seen Pinkerton's here. New century's coming. This life, this way, well, we're the last, I reckon. And we ain't long for it.
And that's the way it goes, I guess.
For me, yes.
All right.
So where are we going?
Just need to pick up something.
So that's exactly what I mean, right? So we have civilization expanding out into, well, everywhere. Right now, there is nowhere for, I mean, outlaws, call them outlaws, but people who are not, people who don't operate within civilization, right? If you want to even think of it in non-criminal terms, living off the grid is basically impossible in modern society. Whether that's the grid of just the power grid, or if it's in a more modern sense, the grid of the internet. It's almost impossible to live entirely offline nowadays. At least in
gun store.
Can you head in and pick up the sniper rifle? I'll explain later.
In the first world generally, but especially in the U.S., it is basically impossible to do that.
Oh, well, hello again. How can I help you today?
Looking for a rifle? Something with a sight on it.
Shouldn't be a problem. You want to see what we've got? It's all in the catalog here.
Kind of already got a rifle, but that's okay. He'll get another one. Hey, it's free! Oh, also, that's my favorite. No, it's not my favorite, but it's a good one. Springfield. It's... Rolling Block's a nice rifle. Carcano's probably my favorite. Okay, I don't want to return to this catalog. I want to make this thing perfect. Yeah, I don't need to mess with that. I don't need that either. Oops. Probably bought too many. Yeah, I'll customize it later. That's fine for now. Okay. Rolling block rifle. Not a fan of the brown steel. I'm probably going to have to fix that at some point.
Good?
Sure.
Might mess with it later.
Let's go.
All right, boy. Why couldn't you have done that?
Done what?
Bought that gun.
I had a run-in with that fella earlier. We ain't on the best of terms.
You had a run-in. I've had a run-in with half that town.
Calm down. It's done now, ain't it?
Why are you being so cagey about all this? Always playing some goddamn game.
Me? I ain't the one taking Jack on fishing trips.
No, you ain't. If you say the boy ain't yours, what's the difference? You probably only run off again.
Why are you so interested in my life? Ain't you got one of your own?
Just do one thing or another. Not be two people at once, that's all I'm saying.
It ain't that simple. You know that as well as anyone. Same as with you and that girl... What was her name? Mary?
That was different.
No, it ain't. Just the same.
Anyway, for the love of God, will you tell me what you got me doing here before I turn around and hit the breeze?
There's a herd of sheep coming down to auction from Emerald Ranch. Folk in town were saying the owner's trying to stamp out every farm from here to Ansburg.
Yeah, I know that place.
Relevant to the idea of picking a thing, being one thing, not trying to be multiple things at once. That actually ties in a lot with another thing I want to talk about from at some point from Plato's Republic, which is the idea of one's function in society, one's place in society, the function one plays, and the thing that one is best at doing, being what one is best at being. As a professor of mine years ago said, to use a nice analogy, this kind of dates the reference, but a happy broom is a broom that is sweeping, it's doing its job, not a broom that wants to go be Angelina Jolie, who was an actress, for those of you who don't know.
So I'm
I guess. But,
that the herd will make it to auction all right, but a couple of new ranch hands will be collecting on the sale.
It's like if I wanted to go off and decided to be a screenwriter, I would not be happy doing so, even if it were like my life's dream to go off to Hollywood and be a screenwriter, because I'm awful at it. And there's nothing I could do to make that job work for me. It would just be something I'm particularly bad at. I can't pick up another gun. Alright, let's see.
Okay, I think that's them over there.
So what now?
Put a shot in near them. I reckon they'll hightail it. They're only ranch hands. Just watch the sheep.
Looks like one of them don't scare too easy.
Put another shot in close. He'll get the message. That ought to do it.
Now we have to collect the sheep.
All
there
right.
you go.
Let's go round them up.
There we go.
Boy, let's go get the strays.
You ever work on a ranch, Marston?
No. You?
Oh, day here or there, but not much.
Most cowboys I know were dumping trees. How hard could it be?
I guess we'll soon find out. Let's get these things. Bring them back to the yards.
Yeah. Come on, get up here.
No, going down here. So yeah, I will note, I kind of eventually, I do eventually at some point along these streams, I do want to kind of talk about the Pinkerton Detective Agency and what we ought to say about Pinkertons and about how that go.
Let's go.
Go.
Go, go. Yeah.
I want to kick him. How their methods work, and then also how the institution, right? The institution in general, right? Of private detectives, of a private agency like that. Because I think there's definitely some. Come on, go. Ah, damn it.
You ain't helping.
Go.
Move it up. Come on.
This is ridiculous. All right, there we go. Anyway, there is certainly merit to be had in a private detective agency like Pinkerton's.
Let's head to town.
Right. There's nothing per se wrong with that sort of thing.
You leave the sheep to me. You ride Shank. Keep watch for any trouble.
I brought you in on this.
It'll be quicker this way. Trust me. This ain't the right time for you to be learning how to herd.
All right, whatever you say. I'm done arguing.
Up.
Quickest route back to Valentine is right around that mountain.
Okay. Like I said, I'll handle this.
Alright, so I'm very bad at this, so you guys are going to watch me very awkwardly try and herd a bunch of sheep. Okay, anyway. Uh-oh, no. Get back here. Don't wander off.
That's more like it.
So yeah, there's some merit to be had to a private detective agency like the Pinkertons. Move, John. It avoids a lot of the problematic aspects of state law enforcement. By state, I mean like the public government, I guess, like public institutions as opposed to private institutions. It avoids a lot of the pitfalls there. Or at least it can avoid a lot of the pitfalls there, while still playing the role of an enforcement of objective law. Now, there are also problems, and some of those problems we can kind of see here. One is obviously in methodology. Right? If the methods are the methods that the Pinkertons employ are fundamentally unjust, then... Oh, jeez. Okay.
Don't stomp all over them.
I didn't. Calm down, John. Right, so if the methods that the Pinkertons employ are fundamentally unjust, then there is a problem there. But presumably that is the kind of thing that can be corrected. Right? Because people would not be willing to contract with an agency that is going to consistently violate people's rights, that sort of thing. That said, Pinkerton Detective Agency was at the time a massive organization. And part of the problem there is the...
Hey, moron!
Oh, not you. Sorry, sir. No. I need to defuse this before you shoot at me. Okay. There we go. We got him. Because, for example, approaching Arthur when he is out with a kid, that is... I mean... You can call that a kind of terrorism. It is governance through fear, fear of retribution against innocence. Right. So there is a problem with their methodology.
You seen better around here?
I've seen ones with less ambiguity about their provenance.
A lot less. What you trying to say?
I'm trying to say you give me 25% kickback, and I won't say nothing to nobody.
Everything all right here?
Excuse me?
Sure, I'll excuse you for 25%.
Do you want me to put another hole in your head?
Folks swing for rustling livestock. 25%.
15.
20.
18.
Done. Calm yourself, friend. Just think of it as I'm buying your sins.
You're buying, but we're paying.
Go on now.
Come back after the auction. You'll get your money.
Dutch is waiting for us at the saloon.
Yes?
Oh, here we go.
Good one, boy.
Yeah. So, the methodological problems can theoretically be solved by voluntary interaction, by competition, that sort of thing. Part of the problem, though, I'm gonna want this for that. Trust me. Actually, do I have? Yeah, no, I am. I really am. No. Springfield. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
18%. Thought we was doing the robbing here.
Still good money.
Well, thanks for all the help with this. Can't herd, can't swim.
Give it a rest, will you? We ain't kids no more.
Well, never really was.
Yeah. So part of the problem, right, is the leniency that the state gives by contracting with the Pinkertons. Right? Pinkertons could not get away with the kind of things that they do if they did not have the force of the state behind them. With the force of the state behind them, particularly the judiciary, they can pretty much do whatever the hell they want, which then makes the problem just as bad, if not worse. Now, we're saying... Go ahead. We're saying that this is in part just a problem of the times. Throughout the 19th century, law enforcement techniques were awfully... we didn't have the same legal protections that we do today in terms of the means of securing evidence, the means of securing confessions, right? All sorts of torturous techniques were sort of par for the course at the time, and so naturally, Pinkertons can get away with just the same amount. So, I will probably go into more of the theory behind private law enforcement, because it's a fascinating topic in legal theory and political theory and all that. So it's definitely worth talking about. But for now, let's go get into some trouble with Dutch. I'm stuck. That's better.
Gentlemen. Dutch, me, Poe.
Where have you been?
Working. Marston's thing.
Good. And?
We're just waiting to get some pay on a few sheep.
Leopold, my good friend, as long as you're here, why don't you and John go make sure there ain't no funny business?
Of course.
Gentlemen, drink?
Sure.
Nothing like talking to old Strauss to make you want to blow your own brains out. I should have left him where I found him all those years ago. Bookish little Austrian, fresh off the boat, his eyes out on stalks.
Well, I guess the Dutch Vanderlyn Finishing School has some strange graduates.
That it does. To your good health.
Thank you.
Vanderland! Get out here! Get out of
What the
here
hell?
now! Vanderland! You don't know me, but you keep robbing me! My name is Leviticus Cornwall!
That's the guy whose train we robbed, by the way.
I am not a man to be messed with by the likes of you! Get out here before I have these men killed!
What do you think?
Get out here,
Well,
you depraved piece of trash!
You start spinning the yarn. When I think the moment's right, I'll make a move.
Got where I am by letting
Why
scum
not?
like you rob from me! Vanderlyn, you're done! Now get out here now! Deal with this nonsense.
Please, gentlemen, this is a terrible mistake. This is a case of mistaken identity. What is worse than admonishing a man for the sins of another. Who wants to be the Messiah? Not me. Nor do I want.
Arthur's a little cross-eyed there.
There you going! That's right at them!
Mr. Strauss.
Good job! I'm gonna kill you, you bastard!
Oh shit, he's that way.
It's all right, boys.
They hit Strauss!
Arthur, cover us! John will push the wagon. Arthur, shoot someone! I'm trying! Get behind the wagon as we push, Arthur! You can use it as cover! Get out of here!
Oh, damn it. That's part of why I'm having problems. Get crappy bullets.
Shut up! You can talk. We all heard you whine about a little Nick from the wolf. Would you shut up and kill these bastards? Oh, you want to come at me?
This is madness!
You're on the front line now, Mr. Strauss. Let's go!
Help me out there, please!
You're getting Strauss enough.
Follow you!
You're fine.
I'm not fine.
Did I not grab a gun over there? I really hope that wasn't something I can't get otherwise. I hate those sorts of things.
Now's our chance. Come on. Put Strauss on the back of John's horse, and let's get out of here.
Yep, okay. Yep, trying.
Make sure nobody's following us. We'll get back to camp. We're gonna gather the troops and get them to start packing up.
Sure. We can't stick around after this.
Let's go! Yeah!
All right. I better get out of here.
This is a really bad idea, but I'm gonna see what happens. Oh, here we go. Whatever that gun is, I'm getting it.
Just as good as dead. Move in.
Are you serious? Well, that was a waste. Alright, moving on. Just gonna go this way then. Anyway, that was fun. That went well. I have a carrot. Let's get out of here. Anyway, so I'll keep riding for a bit. Hopefully not encounter any more problems. If I do, then I'll deal with that. Anyway, so like I said, I am going to eventually want to talk more about the whole Pinkerton private detective sort of deal, what impact that has. It's an interesting topic, but of course we are going to have other run-ins with the Pinkertons throughout the rest of this game, so it is something we're going to keep talking about. It's a problem we're going to keep encountering. Anyway, hopefully the point I've made about the center and margin is sufficiently clear. Now, do I have a bounty? I probably do. Oh, look at that. Let's go to Emerald Ranch. Oh, I also have a letter. You know what? Let's, actually, I'll tell you what. I have to get up relatively early in the morning. So I think we're going to wrap it up around here, having just finished that mission.
Hey there, partner.
So in the description, I am going to put the put a link to some of I think the more relevant bits of Jonathan Joe's work, especially the video on Shrek. I think that's just a fantastic encapsulation of the of this center and margin kind of idea.
Help a blind man.
Okay, here you are.
You keep hidden all that matters, sir. Maybe even from yourself.
Well, okay then. Thank you, I guess.
Alright, so, I am, like I said, so a couple of things that I wanted to talk about and didn't have too much time to. I do still want to talk about Cavanaugh. And that may lead me to want to give, want to do a real talk, like a read-through of Cavanaugh's book. Or at least the interesting, relevant parts of Cavanaugh's book. Nah. You're right. Anyway.
No time for this.
Nope.
Whoa!
Mister.
Anyway. So I do want to talk about that at some point, and I'm sure I will. But for now, yeah, I am going to call it a night. Like I said, I have to get up pretty early in the morning. We've got doctor stuff to take care of, what with Michael and all that. So with that, I think now is as good a place as any to call it an evening. All right, thanks for showing up, guys. Sorry for the slightly short stream, but hopefully it was a pretty good one, and we talked about some interesting topics. Like I said, when this goes up, when this is published, some links to the things I was talking about will show up in the description, so take a look there. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see all of you next week. Bye-bye.